Today is a very fun topic. I do want this to be interactive because it's a very interactive topic. But today we are going to talk about feedback and its challenges, what makes it great, why we want it, just kind of all of those elements that come together with this. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Please know that I am going to call on you guys and it's going to be fun. We're going to have a great time today. So my screen share. And can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So today our goal is how do we cultivate this? How do we make it so that feedback becomes a normal thing for all of us within our teams and our organizations, where it's done in a way that it is always helpful around like growth, and that we're able to build trust and belonging within our teams so that this feedback mechanism ends up being just the course of the norm. A lot of times we have people that get really nervous about giving feedback because they don't want to hurt people's feelings. But yet we crave feedback because it helps with our own personal growth and development. And that's what we want in our personal and professional lives. So it ends up being this really interesting conundrum of how do we build communication and trust and transparency to make our teams and our friendships really an easier place to thrive, to give these types of feedback. So I kind of want to start with you guys. When we look at giving and receiving a feedback, why is this hard for us? And if it is hard, or maybe it's easy, I'd love to hear from you guys to start this out on why is this something we need to be talking about? Erin, you're the top of my screen. You knew I was coming to you.
Of course I am. Hello. I think feedback sometimes is hard to give because as women, we don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. So when it's critical feedback, it's difficult to give that in a way that people take that and listen and can move forward and process it. So receiving it, I think also sometimes people can just take it personally when you need to go ahead and just listen to it again, take a step back, understand where that feedback is coming from.
I love that you said that. That's great. Missy.
Very similar to what Erin said. Hi, everybody. I think giving feedback, I try to be very mindful of how I'm presenting it, because presentation can be a deciding factor for some people about how they receive it. And then the way I prefer to receive feedback, which I'm very open to that. But it is more easily received to me if it's not so harsh. So again, kind of going back to the presentation of it, I'm open to perpetual improvement, but cruelty is not on my top of ways that I want it thrown out at me, right?
Sure. So Missy, can you explain a little bit more on that? So I think what you are talking about is very common, and we have this on a regular basis where when we have experienced feedback in our organizations, it hasn't been done in a way that is either tactful, mindful, maybe there's
Yes.
that trust that needs to be there before. And sometimes we've got those leaders that will cotton ball it, like, hey, you were doing great on this, but this is where you didn't. But don't worry, you were doing great here. And you've got those different dynamics where you've got like the cotton ball, or you've got like the harsh boom, boom, boom. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your own experience with that?
Sure, absolutely. As it comes to me receiving that feedback, I have been in very polar opposite positions before, where one company was basically very quiet and not communicative at all about what I could be doing better, despite me asking, what can I do? It was just cut off. I've also been at other companies where it was very aggressive, like, their tone, they would be like, why did you do it that way? What's wrong with you? Okay, that's not going to be received well. And now currently in the position I have, it's very opposite. Hey, these are the things we think you're doing great, and here's areas we think there could be some improvement on. Can we discuss that? And then it's more of a roundtable about what they're seeing and what I see. And again, in the position I'm currently at, thankfully more times than not, we're eye to eye on that. But then they also provide me some feedback that I can go, yeah, I probably need to put some thought into that. I appreciate you sharing that with me. So, you know, one way kind of crushes me and makes it really difficult for me to want to improve. The other one supports the improvement and says, we see where you're doing, what you're doing and how you're growing, continue in this direction. Let's look at these specific items or tasks that we would like different from you. So, yeah, I've had a very polar opposite, and obviously the latter one in the position I'm currently in now is very well received, and I appreciate the conversations when I have them and they're over.
Ooh, thank you for sharing that. Debbie put in the chat, and Debbie, if you want to just pull yourself off of mute and talk, we would love to hear your opinions on this. Why don't
Hi.
you? Hi.
Yeah, I just said, a lot of times when you're trying to explain to somebody, you always want to start with why. But when you're giving feedback, asking them why they did something, it automatically makes them feel like they're put on defense and being called out for something. You can ask things like, what were your thoughts on this? Or how did you come to this conclusion? And it's the same question, but it's a very different conversation that you can have with them.
I think tone on that is everything.
Yeah.
Where could you help me understand how we got from point A to point B versus why did you do that? Like
Help me
it's
understand is something that I say like at least 5 times a week.
well, and especially because you might have a very rational line of thinking for how you got there, and it might not have been my way to do it, but it might not be wrong. I just need to understand, like the understanding piece. I think a lot of times we get so defensive and then armor goes up and walls go up. And this
Mhm.
is why, when we're talking about the giving and receiving of feedback, building that trust and those relationships so that you are able to give people feedback that's like, hey, I'm really here to help you. Like when I have on this slide, it says the key to growth in designing, developing, and facilitating learning. That is the whole point of feedback. Feedback is to help us get better at designing our communication structure. It is to help our development personally and professionally. Think about if you are a parent, or if you've ever been a parent, or being parented. That's a big one too, where it's like, wait a second, you colored on the wall. Okay, help me understand why we thought it was okay to color on the wall. Well, I was out of paper. Like kids have different ways of thinking, but if we can, like, you don't want to discourage that creativity. And so when we start to facilitate this learning environment, because that's what we're doing in an organization, we're constantly trying to ebb, flow, and evolve to get us moving forward in that growth dynamic. So to not be able to understand people's rationalization, and then when you've got people that are more left brain than right brain, or more linear thinking, you've got people that have growth mindsets and fixed mindsets. And how do we work with all of these different elements of somebody's brain and how they think? And then we use some tone. So help me understand, what's the why behind this? I love that, Debbie. That's amazing. Okay. Anyone else have some that they want to share? Maybe has anyone gotten good feedback? Has somebody done it well for you where you're like, I loved this. It helped me. I felt respected in the process. Because I think it's easy to really illustrate poor feedback. And I'll give you guys an example here once you guys are done sharing. But I'm just curious if anyone has had like a really good example for you.
I think if somebody's coming from a place of caring and if they are, that definitely helps soften the blow sometimes if it's critical feedback that I'm getting. And sometimes it's something that I may not be aware of, or I might not be in the know. And so I tell people all the time that feedback that is a gift. It doesn't feel like it sometimes, but to give me something that gives me more context. I it's if they're coming to me in a place of wanting to help me, then I take that so much better than just a harsh criticism.
Yeah. I like
Yeah,
how you say that. The feedback being a gift is true. Like, what is this teaching me? What is this going to help me learn? What can I do better now as a result of getting this?
I think if it's a feedback on something factual that you didn't know, it's kind of easier to take than maybe something that was a judgment call on
Sure.
your part.
That's a really good.
And I agree with the tone. I mean, I think everybody has to watch tone, and you know, in these days of emails and instant messages, it's hard. You know, the tone, everybody reads more into it sometimes. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind when you're actually writing out something. It's hard to keep a positive tone. So sometimes I just like calling people because I can deliver a message a little different, I guess.
Yeah, Colleen, that's a really good point. So we also live in a very instantaneous response element now. That's the way of the world. That's the way society works. We expect responses quickly. The gift in this, when we're starting to talk about feedback and building this trust, is that sometimes we need to pull ourselves out to a 20,000-foot view. And really, I think a lot of that comes as, I want to call it wisdom. You can call it experience, you can call it age, you can call it timing, whatnot. But to be able to pause for a second and think, okay, how did we get from point A to point B? If I need to give feedback or correct, okay, maybe this was a judgment call. What was the information this person had during that time to be able to get from point A to point B? Are there ways that this could have been done differently? Also, just because you don't do it my way doesn't make it wrong. There's a bajillion ways to get from point A to point B. And again, we've got, we're trying to work smarter, not harder. We've got, AI, we've got all of this stuff that exists now. And so to be able to do this in a way that isn't felt as harsh criticism, that we aren't, it's not a character flaw, but it stays specific to what is transpiring, whatever it be a judgment call, an event, something very specific. It doesn't mean that by giving the feedback from a negative construct, that it means that there's something wrong with the person. It is specific to the issue. And sometimes I feel like we get away from that. Why is it hard to receive feedback? Good. Okay, so I want to switch this for just a second. We've talked a little bit about like the giving of feedback, kind of more of like the constructive feedback to get us moving forward. What about the good feedback? Easy to receive, hard to receive? Do you give it a lot? Do you not? Where are we at with the good feedback?
I try and give the good feedback as often as I can because
Good job.
it's really easy to overlook it, right? We're always trying to solve problems. So sometimes we forget to give the good feedback, and that's just as important as, facilitating a learning environment with feedback. I have a mentor that, all of us have our own gifts, right? And when he mentors me and he's trying to give me critical feedback, he points out all of my strengths. He points out the gifts that each of us have or that I have, and then creates this learning environment with his feedback of how I could do something better or a different way, or he shares his own experiences to kind of use it as an option for me.
I like that. And that then, how does that make you feel?
Great. I mean, it's like, you just want to keep digging in and being more creative and solving all these problems.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I like how you had you've got to give the feedback, the good feedback. We overlook it, but something that's super important, and Gallup had this study back in 2019 that they talked about on a regular basis, that the absence of negative feedback is not positive feedback. So just because you aren't giving someone constructive criticism, that doesn't mean that it means that they feel like they're doing a great job. You still have to make the effort to give people feedback. And I believe the statistic, I do not have the information readily available, but it was like 87% of employees had not been told that they have done a good job in over a year. Which I think, to Stacey's point, if you're not looking for it, like find your ways. You can do it all the time. It just takes some effort. And when we're, everybody has a bajillion things to do, everyone's busy. Where are you going to focus your energy? because like to Stacy's point, she's like, this makes me feel great. Okay, your workers, your team members, your employees, your organizations will start to thrive more when they feel that. They're more productive, they're more engaged, they're more tuned in to what's going on because they feel good in their position. Otherwise, you see people that are just working hard enough to not get fired or get slapped on the wrist. So this is where we start to look at engagement and that giving and receiving of feedback from a gift standpoint. And you've got to make the efforts of giving the positive feedback too. See something, say something. This is kind of where people don't feel bad by getting too much good feedback, especially when it's substantive and you can back it with some objectives. Like, hey, it was really great the way that you structured this meeting, Debbie, because you started with why and you explained why every participant had a role to play that you invited to this meeting. I thought it was done really well. Thank you. You've got a why, you've got the substantive feedback. Just one I thought of off the top of my head. And Debbie had said, the why piece. So what else? Does anyone else have anything else does anyone have a hard time receiving the good?
Hi.
Hi, Deborah. Can you?
I haven't had a matrix request today. Here, let me look. Really? All right,
Oh,
let me see. Let me
okay.
see if I have.
Okay. Well, does anyone have an example about this? Like, is it easy for you to receive the good stuff? So Stacy, you said it makes you feel great. Do you ever have a hard time receiving the good feedback?
I did at one point.
Okay. Can you talk?
But
How did you move through that? Because a lot of times, like I'm going to give an example here. Like Stacy, if I give you a compliment, okay, so that is feedback. It's a positive way. It's really hard for us to just say thank you and move on. We have to explain it. We have to, let's say if it's something like, Stacy, I love your necklace. You'll tell me where you got it. If you got it on sale, there's a story behind. We have a very hard time of saying thank you, period. This is one of your homework assignments, people. When people give you a compliment, I want you to just say thank you. That's it. But
yeah.
Stacy, can you explain? So it was hard at one point. What did that feel like? And how did you transition to it being like, no, it's great?
Exactly what you just said. I always felt like I had to explain why I'm getting a compliment,
Yeah.
And I have gotten to the point through observation of my leaders, especially female leaders, because I think as females, we, have to feel like we explain everything and maybe don't even feel like we deserve the compliment. So I've observed my female leaders, and they would do exactly that. They would say, thank you. And like nothing else needed to be said. It was just like acknowledging the compliment.
Yeah.
And so, but it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah. I understand. I love that. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that too, because I understand that it's not easy and it takes work to just say thank you and then stop talking. Just sit
Yeah.
with it. It's
Can
kind
I
of like,
piggyback off of Stacy
please do.
with that? Like, I love the way she said it. It's so true. And I have really had to practice on receiving compliments because depending on life circumstances or specific jobs you've been in, if all you've received is negative and then you're starting to get some positive, it almost feels like a trick. Like, okay, now what do you want? Like, or so sometimes for me, it was just awkward. Like you said, I would want to explain things or I would just say thank you because
It's on its
was
way.
suspect, of it. But I have also had to practice that just to say thank you, receive it, and move forward from it. And then the same thing with when I was a manager, if I could sense that perhaps someone, that was reporting to me was feeling awkward by it, I might even take it a step further and say, hey, I sense you're feeling a little uncomfortable with the compliment. Can we talk about that too? Just for, I don't know, engagement, growth, maturity on their side, because it's been a struggle for me. as well.
Sure. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from with that if you've been conditioned in a way, because we all come from different organizations that we've been a part of. And I want to even say, like, from personal or professional, like our families are organizations as well in their own right. And so when we have, programming, or then this is where you start to see a lot of generational programming with, like, if we were not raised in families where compliments were exchanged all the time, or people were able to accept them, or there was always some other, there was something behind it. There was all like the manipulation or whatnot. There's ways that it's been harder for us to be able to just like stand in ourselves and be like, yeah, this is great. Life is awesome. Thank you so much for that compliment. Thank you for that feedback. It's kind of like, where's the other shoe going to drop? What do you want? Why are you doing this? And I understand that. So I think it's important that we do and put some awareness behind that. It doesn't make it right, wrong. It is literally just an awareness, because to Stacy's point, you can get better. And it's like a muscle. It's a muscle that we're going to exercise. So your homework from here moving forward, when someone gives you a compliment, I don't want you to give them anything else more than a thank you. And I know this is going to be hard for some people. It is. It's okay. We're going to work on this muscle, because today is all about growth. And this is one of those growth things. But we're going to say thank you. And that's it. You don't have to justify any of it. It'll probably be the hardest homework assignment you have this week. Okay. Does anyone have anything else you want to share with us? And then I'm going to kind of get into some of like the heavier content today, because these are good examples. And I really appreciate you guys being willing to share them, especially because the feedback piece is really hard. And sometimes, like, I am somebody, I love the feedback because I constantly want to do better tomorrow than I'm doing today, or right in this space or whatnot. Some of the interesting things we have to gauge also are who's giving us the feedback. So a lot of times this comes from somebody that's in a position of power. Other times it's not. Like if we do a 360 review to get some better awareness on ourselves, who are you choosing to ask? Are these people going to be people that you want to get feedback from? I'll give you guys an example that I find kind of interesting. So I do a lot of public speaking, and I love hearing, am I articulating the message in a way that's consumable? Because it's really important for me for messages to be consumable, or I'm not doing my job effectively. I also want you to leave inspired, happier, more energized. Like that's my goal. Without fault, no matter what presentation I do, someone comments on my physical appearance. And I've asked some of my male counterparts if this happens to them, and it does not. And I just think that's something interesting, because, it is what it is. But so then I have to take that with a grain of salt of, okay, I like, my whole goal is to make myself better from a content standpoint, an inspiration standpoint, leaving people inspired, leaving people having that kind of cultivation. And if somebody doesn't like my hair, somebody doesn't like the clothes that I'm wearing, etc., that you've got to take that feedback with, okay, do you care? So as we go through this, I want you to think about that. When you're getting feedback, is it constructive? Is it helpful? Is it kind? And does it impact you from a standpoint that's going to help you grow in designing your life, grow in designing your communication strategy, how you are showing up as yourself? Does it help you in your development journey? Does it help you in your facilitation of interacting with other people? And if it doesn't, also, do you respect this person enough to care? So when Stacy says, I'm meeting with my mentor, yeah, we want to hear what our mentor's saying, because they have a vested interest in making sure you are awesome. And so I want to highlight that, because it's just something so random, but it happens on a regular basis. All right, Erin just says it's a gift. We give with intention and focus and time. I love that. Erin, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to add that in if I ever do this presentation again. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about, like, what is feedback? So it's really giving us information about our actions or behaviors. The goal of feedback, when you open your mouth to provide feedback to another human being, the goal is future improvement. It is not to nitpick. It is not to judge. It is not to give your own opinion. It is to help guide somebody for future improvement. And you know what? You can give yourself feedback too. So like we record these go in the Bloom vault. I go back and watch. I go back and I pull my scripts. I like to hear, what did you say? Would you have done it this way? Like we can give ourselves feedback as well. So we've got constructive feedback that, again, it focuses specific to the issue. We are not attacking somebody's credibility, their virtues, their values. We're talking about something that is specific that we can offer a suggestion for improvement. Again, it can be something that is very small, but again, it's got to be specific to the issue, not necessarily the person, what they stand for, what they believe in, etc. And then we look at the positive feedback standpoint, where what was done well. We want to continue this greatness that we saw within this person, or something that they did that you're like, that was really well done. I really like that. I'm going to go back to the example that I gave for Debbie, with Debbie's going to set an agenda for a meeting. She sets it for a specific time. She starts with why we're going to the meeting, who's invited, and what roles they're going to play. Because in my world, if there's no agenda, I do not attend. Because I want to know, if you're going to take my time, I need to know what you want from me and what value I'm going to bring to this, or no. Time is the only currency, and this is something that's super important to me. And that's, my time is something I value. So I would give Debbie that feedback. Thank you so much for articulating the why we're having this meeting, the time that we're going to spend on it, and whose role is what during this process. So that it continues, because I want Debbie to keep doing that, because it's so helpful and resourceful for all of us to know our roles that we're going to play. So why is this important? So I like to think of this as inertia, and the whole, like, an object in motion stays in motion. So when we're giving feedback and we're trying to help somebody cultivate, we're working on those future improvements, it becomes a snowball effect. So to Stacy's point, like, it makes me feel great when I hear these strengths that my mentor sees in me. And then I want to go do more. Like, that makes me feel good. So I know I'm doing something great. I want to go stand in that. I'm going to go let my light shine and continue to do that. And it ends up being that physics of that of object in motion stays in motion. So Stacy's going to go ahead and thrive in her strengths. So this is going to improve her performance and skills. Also, it enhances our learning and understanding. If we are getting feedback that helps us grow and develop and learn, we take that constructive, we're going to do it that way. And also, it helps us when we get the positive feedback to understand that if we have changed something for a future improvement, that it is working, it is being well received. Am I hitting my target, or am I not? If I'm trying to come across more specific to an audience on a very specific topic, or I'm trying to be more mindful of people's time, getting that positive feedback helps reinforce, I'm doing this well, let's continue. Or if you're getting the constructive feedback, okay, I tried this, it missed the boat, but I can try and just shift it a little bit and we'll move forward. And this helps build that trust and communication within teams. A lot of people go through this whole, I don't want to step on people's toes, that's not my area, or I don't want to hurt their feelings. It's unkind to not tell people. So think about if you've ever had food stuck in your teeth. You want to know. You don't want to be the person that is walking around smiling at everyone with spinach in your teeth. It's unkind. So this is where, if we go back to, like, going back to kindergarten and thinking about our relationships of building trust and community within kids, you see something, you say something, whether that be something positive, like, hey, you look amazing today. Gosh, I love that color on you. Or it's, hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, your tag is out, I'm going to tuck it in. Or, hey, you've got toilet paper stuck on your shoe. Or, hey, you've got a little piece of something in your teeth. It's unkind to not tell people. So there's just little things that I think that we get nervous because we're afraid of, like, I'm not going to hurt your feelings. It's not about that. This is how are we going to help somebody with a suggestion for improvement that is done in a kind tone, in a kind manner, because we're trying to help people, guide them for future improvement. So something to think about on that. So to give feedback effectively, it does take a little bit of preparation, purely because of the way that I say something to Missy, where I'm like, hey, girl, this is what I'm thinking, might be received differently on the Missy side than if I was going to go give Erin feedback. And this is where, like, to Stacy's point, or no, sorry, Colleen, pick up the phone. We do a lot of communication in text messages and emails, through messenger services. there can be a big benefit that comes from picking up the phone. And also the way that we're going to communicate, like if I'm going to communicate with Missy versus Aaron, I might pick different words knowing what I know about them. Like if they both have different backgrounds, or I know that we've done different projects together, or examples that I'm going to use, because examples can be helpful. When we think about when we're trying to change behavior, showcasing poor behavior actually gets better results than showcasing great behavior. It's kind of ironic, but it's the way we're wired for a negativity bias. We like to see things not go well so we can understand how to make them better. It's an interesting learning dynamic that is kind of fascinating, but it works. So we want to prepare. What's that going on? What do we want to talk about? What is the feedback we need to give? What is the situation? Remember, we're going to be very specific to that issue. And what are the facts? What is your goal? If you're going to give this person this whatever information it is, what's your intention behind that? What do you want the outcome to be? Do we want them to be, I can't hear you when you speak. I need you to be louder. I need you to enunciate your words because I can't understand when I'm standing in the back of the room. I don't understand the crispness or the clarity of your words. I need you to be better at that diction component. Or like, what does that look like? And when we're working in our organizations, we want to remember our team members are a direct reflection of us. So this is again where we want to help develop people to be their very best in their potential. So they're a direct reflection of us, a direct reflection of our organization. And again, I'm going to put that into your friend circles and your family circles. Those also operate as their own little organizations as well. And I'm not saying walk around and give people feedback all the time, like, oh, da, 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 but when it's appropriate, we want to be very specific, clear, and detailed. Again, vagueness has no place here. We need to be specific if we want to help somebody change a behavior, if we want to help somebody understand a decision that was rendered. Let's get some clarity around it. And again, being specific, detailed, and having facts is really, really helpful. Because sometimes if we are going to go down that vague route, we aren't going to be able to achieve the desired outcome because people leave confused. And that's not our goal behind this. We want that specific focus so that people know exactly where they stand. Okay, this is what happened. I get this. It helps people take accountability where, okay, I could have done this better. Here's where I could have improved. I hear you. We are also going to speak from our own perspective when we are giving feedback. We're not trying to put people on the defensive because once somebody goes on the defensive, they don't hear you. They do not hear you. And this is where like walls go up, armor's on, and people cannot hear what you are saying anymore. A really good example of this is when I was parenting my daughter and she's 7. And for some reason, well, whatever, because they're kids, leaves socks on the kitchen table on a regular basis, which was gross. And I didn't like that. But I raised my voice. And she ended up turning to me one day and saying, I can't hear you when you yell at me. And it like changed the way that I parent. It changed the way that I communicate because she's not wrong. When the tone changes, we go on the defensive and we can't hear what the person is trying to tell us. And so when we think about the good ways that we've received feedback and the kind ways that we've received feedback, I want you to look at that from a tone standpoint, the words that are used. Again, we're trying to look at the different vocalics that exist with this. And then also the negative ways that we've gotten our constructive feedback, where, it can be harsh, rash. We leave feeling defeated. We leave feeling hurt. We can be sad. We can feel shame. And once those types of things happen, the trust erodes. And then people don't want to give this feedback anymore, or they're afraid of what's coming next. So we also want to make sure that you privately critique, publicly praise, privately critique. And also this is kind of where love languages come in. Know your team. Some people love the praise out in public. Other people are like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't want to stand up there. I'm good. But pay attention to your timing and what that environment looks like and what your team wants from a specifics. And this is getting to know people well. But general rule of thumb, publicly praise, privately critique. All right, when we are giving feedback, it's got to be timely. For some reason, we've had this, maybe it's because we've become more virtual, But sometimes we will continue to like build a list of things. Like if you think about when I'm going to spend time with my one-on-one with my team, or when I'm going to spend a one-on-one with my boss, and we have a list of things. And then it's like whammy, 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 whammy. You want to be timely with feedback so that it is done instantaneous in the moment, it's exchanged, and then the progress can be shown, developed, and made immediately. Versus, okay, I'm going to do a one-on-one next month, and I'm going to talk to Colleen about something that happened at an event that she was at a couple months ago. And I'm going to be specific to the issue, but she's not going to remember because we've had 6 weeks since that happened. So you want to be timely, specific and timely. Like this is where I go back to like the whole see something, say something, because you can do it kindly, you can do it timely, and you can do it quickly, where this doesn't have to be a half hour, an hour meeting, but it can be done pretty quickly. Or to give positive feedback, to Stacy's point, you could do it all the time. You could do it through Messenger, you can send an email, you can pick up the phone and just say, hey, I wanted you to know that was great. You can send a note about wonderful job on this. We also really want to be specific to the behavior and the outcome when we're giving our feedback. We're not just going to generalize, we're going to be very specific. Being specific also helps people understand what they're doing is great. So if this is a habit that somebody is trying to start, they're knowing that that is great. I'm going to continue to do that. And then they can work on to the next thing that they're trying to get progress on. Excuse me. We're going to be constructive. We've talked about that. And also, if you were on that other flip side, how would that feel for you? So going back to the golden rule, do unto others as others would do unto you. How would you want to receive the feedback? I can tell you that if I have spinach in my teeth, I really hope somebody is going to tell me. Or if my tag's out, if there's something like that. Like that's where we really want to focus on how would that other person feel if that was you, or if you want to put like your child in that position or your parent in that position. Like if somebody did that to someone that was close to you, how would you feel? And so when we're doing this, like again, thinking of what would be the best way for me to receive it. And then also you can ask how you've done. Was that an okay way to receive feedback? And not asking for permission, but more asking like, I want to make sure we have a dynamic within our organization or within our team where we can talk to each other. Like, I'm not out to get you. I really want to make sure that what I'm saying to you is heard and that we're moving forward from a growth standpoint together. The don'ts. Can't make it personal. When you make it personal, people get defensive. They don't like you as a result. They feel like crap when they talk to you. And it becomes an attack on a person's character versus being specific to an action and a behavior. So we want to make sure about that. We don't do this in public either. Again, privately critique. This is where it is very personal. When we're asking people, we're opening up them into a vulnerable position. We want them to feel safe when we're giving this vulnerable type of information. So we respect privacy, especially when it is sensitive. And feedback should be done in a very few points, which if you're doing it timely, that should work. This is where when if we start this list and we're only going to talk about it during our one-on-ones that are every, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, that's where people can feel overwhelmed within this. And then also feedback's a continuous loop. It's a continuous loop because ideally we execute an action or make a decision. We get an outcome, we receive the feedback and we adjust, and then it should continue. And ideally that momentum keeps us moving forward if we're doing it correctly. And so it is not a one-time event, but it's technically an ongoing cycle. Why is this so hard for us? So we talked about this at the beginning with our own life experiences, but we have a really big fear of the unknown and a really big fear of negative reactions from anger, sadness, anything that could be defensive, because we don't want to cast shame. That is not our goal with other people. We get uncertain, like there's this fear of the unknown. How are they going to respond? Is it going to be helpful? Are they going to get angry? Like this is where like people take accountability and responsibility for their actions or the decisions that they've made. A lot of people have also never been trained on how to give effective feedback. I remember the cotton ball approach because I thought it was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in a crucial conversations training back in, I can tell you it was 2016 and again in 2017, where they're like, to give feedback, we give it as a cotton ball. You give positive and then you tell them what they need to work on and then you give them more positive feedback. I don't want to hear that as a receiver. Like if I put myself in the receiving shoes of that, I need to know, I would rather just be direct. Okay, if you liked those things, awesome. What can I work on? How can I improve? I want to grow and develop and learn. Be direct. And so when we think about the training components behind this, I'm sure some people can deal with that. Oh, and Debbie says, it's the who sandwich. Yes, I totally agree with that. It makes me laugh. And also, when you put yourself in that position, is that how you would want to receive feedback? We'll just leave it there because maybe some people do. I personally do not. So I don't like to give feedback in that capacity, but I like to give specific feedback. And my day job is being a professor. My students can't get better and I can't expect better quality of work if I am not specific and I give them areas of opportunity to improve. None of us are flawless. None of us are perfect. You can also give really good feedback to people that are doing an excellent job because that's where you give the, hey, I love this. I want to see more of this. This was done well. Let's continue this. And this is where that positive feedback becomes really important too. It's also, we get weird on this conflict. Conflict isn't a bad thing. Friction helps things grow. So when we get comfortable, we stop growing and we get comfortable in our positions or we get comfortable in what we're doing. And with feedback, the whole idea behind feedback is growth and improvement. So things to think about as we continue to talk about this. Again, be specific to the issue or the behavior, not the person. We also like to not use absolutes because people don't do things every single time, or you always do it this way. You think about the last time you've had an argument, maybe with a friend or a partner or a family member, where you're like, well, you always leave the dishes in the sink. Well, no, because they're going to say, well, that one time I didn't. Be careful with absolutes as well. Remember, the goal of feedback is that we are helping people to improve for wherever they're at right now, just to get a little bit better. So now when we're looking at receiving feedback gracefully, so now we're on the receiving side of this. Our goal is to listen actively, like acknowledge it without any judgment. We want to validate what someone has said to us. Okay, so this is what I'm hearing you say. Ask for clarification. So while we're explaining to somebody else, we're asking, hey, can you help me understand, articulate the why? You can absolutely ask for clarification on the receiving end. And this is why it's important to have specific examples, either examples that are with that own person's work product or examples of what we're striving to achieve, etc. And then reflect on that feedback. If it hits you somewhere physiologically that you're like, ew, or ugh, or you get like offended by it, there's some truth that you don't want to address within yourself. And this is that whole self-awareness. We've done a lot of talks on this within Bloom about like the self-leadership spectrum. How good are you at managing yourself? So if someone gives you some feedback and it doesn't feel great, there's a reason for that. And it is uncomfortable. And this is where that growth occurs. So, okay, right. Why do I feel like that? Is there a shred of truth? And I'll go back to like when my daughter was like, I don't hear you when you yell at me. I'm like, oh, I'm an ineffective parent. What is going on? Okay. So how can I change that? Like, Sadie, I don't want your socks on the kitchen table. It's gross. Here's why I don't like it. What can we do to work together to not have our socks on the kitchen table? Negotiating with a 7-year-old is challenging within itself, but it worked. And, we've grown and developed and learned. So then we make an action plan. All right. You've gotten this feedback. If you're going to take it, you deem it credible. It's coming from your mentor. Here's where we're at. Okay. I respect this person. They're here to help me grow. What do I do with this information now? We're going to adjust. What are the steps that I can take to make myself better tomorrow than I was today? And then thank the person. This is where, even if you don't agree with the feedback given, it takes a lot of balls to give somebody feedback these days, especially if people are trying to do it from a sense of kindness and compassion. So thank them. And then, this is kind of one of those times where if you want the feedback, you're going to use it. It's great. And also, even if you don't, or you don't respect it, or you don't want it, or you're like, ugh, whatever, still thank them because that's still a reflection of you and your character. So if Missy's going to say, Claire, I didn't like this, this, and this, I can say, you know what, Missy, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your feedback. I will take that into consideration. There are our personal stories that are going to come into play with this. And then there's also the business savvy. And as leaders, as organizational leaders, as people who are going to be game changers, with which all of you are, or you wouldn't be here right now, This is where we have to be the bigger person sometimes. So even if you don't agree with it, we're still going to take that high road and we're going to say thank you, because that says a lot more about us than it does to the person that is giving us this. And also, it might be really helpful and game changing. And you're like, yes, oh my gosh, thank you so much for this feedback. I did not realize that I was doing that, or I did not realize I should be speaking louder so the people in the back can hear me. I mean, you don't want people to miss your message. So we want to listen fully. We're also going to keep an open mind. Going back to Erin's concept on the gift. This is a gift. There's something you can take from this. There's something this is teaching you. So keep that open mind so that you can have those moments of growth and change. Also, remember, ask those questions and thank for feedback. The don'ts. This isn't personal. It is specific to an issue. It should be. It should be specific to a behavior. This has nothing to do with your self-worth. Shame does not have a place here. If you are getting feedback, this is because somebody actually wants to help you get better. So let's separate your self-worth from it and not take it personally, and try really hard to not be defensive. A lot of us are going to go into defense mechanism mode because that's the way that we've been conditioned. And that's okay. We just want to cultivate some awareness around that if you want to get good at receiving feedback, that we take that armor down just a little bit. Don't ignore it, especially if you're hearing it more than once. One-offs, okay, do what you want with, but if you're hearing it time and time again, maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe there's something behind it. And also, take time to think on this. Take those opportunities to reflect, see if there's anything that you can learn. All right, this gets hard for us because it's okay to feel something. We get emotional, and emotions are absolutely okay. I'm working on this on a regular basis. It's okay to feel things, but it's natural to feel vulnerable or defensive when this is occurring. And also, again, if we're taking into consideration who's giving us this feedback, what are they trying to help us with? And again, if we're specific to an issue, this makes it a little bit easier. A lot of people do operate with a fixed mindset, where we think that it's limited opportunities, things are static, we can't change, it's hard to do this. And then people feel threatened as a result. If we think about life from a growth mindset, where we have opportunities are abundant, every day is a chance for us to get better, and we start to think about it in these constructs, this can make it a lot easier for us to understand that our abilities can be strengthened as long as you care enough to try. And this is where passion eats strategy for breakfast and all that. You just simply have to care enough to put some effort behind it. We can also have misinterpretations, which is why picking up the phone or doing a Zoom or being able to be in person might be a better way for you to give and receive feedback, because there's a lot of the body language that isn't articulated through a text message, an email, a messaging service, you name it. So we want to be able to have those opportunities of clarification and to understand the energetic components that are going on throughout this exchange. We also have a fear of failure. Oh, feedback can be intimidating, and we know that. And we don't want to fail. Like, a lot of us are trying our best every day. And so sometimes this can look like our highlights are the failure part and not necessarily the things that we've done well. Something else to consider is if you're only getting constructive feedback and you're not ever getting that positive feedback, this might sting a lot more. And that's technically on your leader for not being able to do both, but it's something to consider. And so for us being on the receiving side of this at this point, this is something that we need to just kind of take into consideration so that we're aware that that exists. So you can see both truths. Fear of failure also, if you've got a team that you've got this culture where people are afraid of failing and then they can't be empowered to make decisions, you're going to end up with a failure to try. Because we talk about innovation on a regular basis. We want to be innovative. We want to work smarter, not harder. We want new ideas. We want to try things that make us different, that challenge the status quo, that make us come alive, that make us bigger. We're going to do better than we did previously. You will end up with people that are afraid to try because their fear of trying ends up superseding the fear of failure, depending on how the trust has been built around this team. I used to, when I was doing claims operations, we would talk about, look, we're going to fail a bajillion times, and that's okay. but we're going to fail in the right direction. So maybe it didn't work perfectly that first time, but we at least moved the needle a little bit forward. So now we adjust and we try again, because we want a culture of innovation. And to do that, you can't have the feel of failure, because it will inevitably give people a fear of trying. So something to think about. They are different constructs. So let's compare and contrast the negative feedback to the positive feedback for a second. When we start to look at this, we've talked about the negative stuff. So let's talk about the positive. This is the hard stuff for us. And, from a female perspective versus a male, men tend to do this a lot easier than women. Women are taught to be humble, don't be too big, etc. So know that this might be true for you. It also might not be true for you. If you're a male in this space, you might be like, that's easy for me. This isn't applicable. Totally fine. Just be aware. Some things you can take with, other things you might not want. So when we're receiving positive feedback, don't diminish the compliment. The person wanted to give you this. That's why they said this. So if you see something, say something and accept it. They didn't have to tell you. Like, that's the other thing. Like, sometimes we're like, you stop a stranger on the street and they get a piece, you get it like a, hey, you look really nice today, or I love those shoes, or whatever it is. And we're like, oh, but I mean, do they really like my shoes? They didn't have to say something. Like, if we go back to what Stacy said earlier, it takes effort. It takes effort to give somebody this, and it's a gift. So accept it, take it, and say nothing else. We're saying thank you, and use it as an affirmation for what you're doing. So if you're getting, hey, these are your strengths. Hey, this project was done really well. This is a reinforcement of your strengths or some behaviors that you do really well. So use that as a catalyst for what's going to come next. You can also get more details about, okay, was it mannerisms? Like, this is why we want that specific detailed feedback with concrete objectives, so that we can understand it better for ourselves, to be able to digest this piece so that we can take it and do something with the positive feedback too. And then also, if it wasn't just you, give that credit to the other team members too, or make sure that they get highlighted, because we all win when one of us wins and we've done something together as a team. This is where we really want to pull people up with us. And this is best demonstrated actively in front of other people, because this is where examples need to be set by those that are like, thank you. So-and-so also helped with this. And making sure that we give that feedback to the correct parties. Why this is so hard. Okay, a lot of us have heard this term. We struggle with positive feedback because we have this fear of imposter syndrome. Like, why me? Am I qualified for this? You are exactly where you are supposed to be at this moment, at this time. You come with your life experiences, you come with your familial dynamics, you come with your work background, and there is no other person who has that exact makeup as you do. So while you might feel this imposter syndrome, other people see you as brilliant and awesome. And this is where that self-reflection component comes in. How do you lead yourself? We all have those feelings of imposter syndrome from time to time, but there is no other you, and that is your huge superpower. We end up having these feelings where we don't deserve our accomplishments. Who else did it? We are easy to take accountability when things don't go well. I'm asking you to take accountability when things do go well, because we're so easy to take I accept responsibility. This was my project. It did not land we didn't meet the objectives, the goals, the sales target. It's my fault. This is what I'm going to do differently. When you do succeed with it, yes, you did, because you did that, because you took your team, you're doing it collectively, you're bringing people with you. It is no different. It truly isn't. When you break it down and you take out the positive and the negative, they are literally the same. But my goal for you is that you understand that it might be cultural, it might be your own personal life experiences, and the way that you view yourself from a worth standpoint. But you are the only person that gets to be in that space. And when those achievements are coming, you are the one who did that with your experience, with your education. You wouldn't have been asked to be a part of the team, the project, whatever it is, if you weren't you with your education, with your experiences, with your background, and all of those innate, unique skill sets that you bring to the table. So I understand that it is hard. I need you to hack that little voice inside your head and remind yourself that you are great and that you are awesome and that you are incredibly deserving of the achievements just as much as you are deserving of the feedback that might be constructive. So just a little perspective shift as you go into the rest of your week. I just want you to think about that. Okay. So I'm done off that horse. So let's talk about the receiving of negative feedback. Please breathe through it. Breathe through it. And again, just maintain composure. The way that we receive information has everything to do with us and not about the person that's coming at us, because we can only control our behavior. So then we've got to understand you can have a feeling towards something, but what are the facts to support it? So we want to focus on the content. And this is again why it's important to be detailed and specific and have an example. And this is where you can ask for that. So if we are focusing when we're giving the feedback of specifics, examples, objectives, etc., we should focus that too when we're getting it from people. And then we just make a plan. You know what? We are all living right now is our first time in this experience. This is our first time together in this human experience, doing this today, right now. And I think if we can start to give ourselves the grace in that, as long as there's good intent and it's not malicious, we're all humans living a human experience and everything is figure outable. We tend to forget that from time to time. The sky is falling, these things are happening. No, you just need to pull yourself out to 20,000 foot, to a 20,000 foot view, cut the emotions off, make a plan, and figure it out. And if you need help with that, that's where we look at our board of directors, our friend circles, our people. Who can you call during those moments? Or even having those conversations with your mentor. I received feedback from X. Is there truth behind this? Receiving negative feedback is hard because it's going to trigger some of our defense mechanisms, and it triggers those feelings of failure. And again, if we go back to understanding why the fear of failure can inhibit the fear of trying, this makes a little bit more sense. We want to do our best. We want to be seen in our best light, and negative feedback can, or the constructive feedback can challenge some of that perspective on how we view ourselves. But if you stay open and you're willing to learn and you're willing to grow, this is where we start to look at it from a gift standpoint. So how does this apply to business and our organizations? Without rejection, we can't find our best customer market. Without competition, we can't improve the right rate. Without bad customer feedback, we don't know how to improve our products. Without clients that go choose somebody else or a different offer, we can't then build the best offer. Without failing, we don't learn the lessons. This is where life experience comes in. This is where that uncomfortableness of growth. Without trying, you will never grow. And without failing, you don't understand or recognize success without having that other construct to it. And without hardship, we don't learn enough about ourselves, and we don't get to live this human experience that we have. So again, while it's important to understand our own life, we come at this from our own experience. And it's okay. It's okay to feel all the feels. It's just, what are you going to do with it? Everything is figure outable. What are you going to do with the time you have with the gifts that you've been given? Again, it's very hard, and I understand that. And I know it's vulnerable and it's messy, but it's hard and it's necessary. And you guys got this.